Hey guys, so my previous Christmas favorites had been about Home Alone, so I figured the second one should be about Home Alone 2. So just like the first one, Home Alone 2 brings a lot of memories back into my life. It's another one of my favorites. As far as the sequel go, even though it's a retrend of the original, I'd say it's still of quality compared to the first, maybe even better in some aspects, which I'll get to later here. But anyway, so Home Alone 2 basically follows the same premise of the family leaving behind Kevin, although this time it happens in a different way. Luckily, after waking up late once again, Kevin actually makes it to the airport this time. However, he needs to put batteries in his Talkboy, and of course, he gets mistaken sitting in the middle of the airport and happens to find a guy who looks just like his dad, wearing the same jacket. And Kevin inadvertently follows him onto the plane, where he ends up in New York City. One of the biggest cities in the world, one of the most crowded. The movies, it's great. The New York setting, I think, fit perfectly, especially with a little kid being in that huge city by himself, trying to survive. One of the great things about it when he gets there is it starts out with Darlene Love's All Alone for Christmas, which really kind of sets the mood for the movie. It just kind of gives you that upbeat, pop, jazzy Christmas song. Probably one of my favorites of all time as well. I love me a good saxophone solo, and you can just tell Kevin's just having a blast. While this time the family's in Miami, where it's raining heavily and there aren't Christmas trees, as Kevin put it. So basically, I mean, Home Alone 2, he ends up in the Plaza Hotel using his dad's credit card. Somehow he figured out how to do that, recording his voice with the Talkboy once again. When he gets there, say what you will about Donald Trump, but he helped Kevin get in the right direction. You got to admire him for that. And that's now that he's president, it's definitely one of the most memorable appearances by a politician in movies. So that's always going to be a classic. But we've got Tim Curry as I guess, the concierge of the hotel. There's Rob Schneider, who I always seem to forget is in this as the bellboy, who seems to be really bad at getting tips from kids and people as well. And they're basically just a bunch of idiots who scare Kevin off once he gets confronted about the credit card, about his stolen credit card. Tim Curry definitely has that creepy look on his face that he always does, and I think that worked perfectly. Of course, this time Harry and Marv escape from prison, and instead of being known as the Wet Bandits, they're known as the Sticky Bandits this time. Basically, with Marv now sticking his hands into Salvation Army cans or trays and stealing money. And of course, they're back. They run into Kevin, and the rest of the movie is basically them chasing him this time, not necessarily trying to rob um, places besides the store at the end, obviously, but it's more of a revenge type thing. Yet that doesn't really happen. This time Kevin ends up meeting a loner in the park, the pigeon lady who eventually scares the shit out of him, just like Old Man Marley did. But then he learns to, I guess, who she really is as a person after she helped him out of the tree. It basically follows the same exact thing with Old Man Marley. It's another sweet thing, but at the same time, this one's a little bit creepier considering they go to the symphony, and they're basically just staying at the top, and he's alone with this lady. Not to say that it's not a nice moment as far as friendship goes, but it's a little creepy. Definitely is. And then, of course, the best part of the movie once again is the whole siege. And this time, it's not Kevin's house. You gotta admire Kevin though. For a little kid, he's pretty damn smart. I don't know how he rigs together all these traps and everything, but he works, and all of them end up being hilarious. This time, I think this is where the movie succeeds over its predecessor. It does a lot of them better this time, I think. Maybe it's just the camera angles, but I found a lot of them funnier than the first one, which I'm going to get to here. So obviously, it starts out with them trying to rob the toy store, with Kevin just using a bucket and a plank. Ends up, Harry ends up going up high and then crashing down onto the car. Marv stepping on it and just launching him in the air. Then, of course, they finally get to the house. I think it was his aunt and uncle's house is being renovated. Excuse me. and Kevin's throwing bricks off of the roof into Marv's face about 3 times here, with Harry just basically tormenting him, making him throw the bricks. And then, of course, once again, Harry goes to the side. Marv just goes straight to the front. One of the best things is when Marv and the staple gun, where he starts pulling out the doorknob and it's just the huge string, and then all of a sudden you see it taped to the staple gun, and then you see first the staple going into his butt, and then the second one's my favorite because it's a very close up shot, and it sees the staple leaving the stapler and going straight into his crotch, and just the impact of it, and then his reaction after that is perfect. And then of course he falls to the ground, and then once again it goes straight into his nose. While Harry, on the other hand, is trying, he sees a ladder which Kevin covered in the, I think it was monster goo is what it was called. Can't remember why he needed that, but he thought it would be cool. And ends up working here. And then Harry jumps from the trash can onto the ladder, hangs from it, slips, and then just completely falls on his ass. Another one of my favorites. And then gets knocked by a bag of tools right on his head. Marv ends up in the basement yet again after falling, and he slips on the goo again, goes feet first into a paint shelf, which knocks all the paint all over him. And then my other favorite is where he gets the, what is it? Oh yeah, Kevin electrocutes him. That's right. And the 80s seemed to be pretty good at, like, or the 90s, I guess, love doing skeletons. There's a lot of movies where people like get electrocuted or hurt or something, and it tends to show their skeleton. And this one's actually pretty creepy. I'm not gonna lie. It always creeped me out as a kid, and it still has that feel to it now. Of course, it's a hilarious scene, but at the same time, the imagery is pretty weird for, I guess, a family movie there. And then my all-time favorite, I guess, trap per se, is the Harry's head getting lit on fire once again. Obviously, being weary of anything in the house, he's being careful, pulling light switch after light switch, and then all of a sudden he pulls one into the bathroom, and it sets his hair on fire, which he tends to freak out. And then, of course, Kevin filled the toilet with flammable liquid, and then Harry does it like a handstand into it, and the whole thing just explodes. And it's just perfect, and I love it so much, and it always makes me laugh, even when I watched it the other night. And then, of course, he end up in Central Park, and Kevin wins yet again, and the whole family finally arrives. His mom meets him over at Rockefeller Center, and yeah, they all have a great Christmas once again, reunited with Kevin, and then of course the family's like back to normal as soon as they find out Kevin saved the day yet again. Got them in a nice hotel room. Basically, the couple good things about this one that I like, considering I was in New York 2 months ago, I really love the imagery, and I always, now that I've been there, every movie that I watch, I'm gonna be like, did I go there, or is that close to where I was? And then of course the scene where he's at the top of the World Trade Center towers, which is very, very weird to watch now, considering I visited the memorial, and those towers are no longer there. And I know that scene was actually edited out of TV versions for a long time, probably still is, but of course the DVDs and Blu-rays do have that intact. And then there's the Central Park, the ice skating rink. Luckily I didn't, or I guess unfortunately I didn't get to see that in person, because I went in October and it opened, I think, a couple weeks ago. But anyway, that's beside the point. It's just a great movie. Home Alone 2, just as good as the sequel, or the first one, maybe even better. I mean, it's definitely a double feature that you should watch. That's for sure. And it has one of the best ending lines of all time, with Kevin's dad yelling after Kevin spending all the room service, saying, "You spent $967 on room service!" And then he just cuts to the credits straight away. That's definitely one of my favorite endings of all time. So if you haven't seen that one, I recommend checking it out as well. Please pull a double feature of Home Alone 1 and 2, and Merry Christmas, you filthy animal.